Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. If there is one figure, one statistic that should shame not just every SNP politician, but every SNP voter, it is the fact that this Christmas, 16,000 children languished homeless in Scotland. Never mind the adults. 16,000 children did not have a home. In what is supposedly a modern Western democracy. 16,000 children. Plenty of money to spend on foreign embassies. Plenty of money to waste away on expensive Moroccan wanks, shall we say. But not enough money to make sure a child has a roof over its head at Christmas. But that's the SNP for you. They don't care about people because they're all sociopaths. And the only time they think about children is when they're really thinking about children, but not in a good way. And that's the sort of thing that you can find on iPads, should anyone ever hand them in to be discovered and to be found out what particularly certain individuals were doing in hotel rooms with their iPads as they racked up huge bills looking at very young people. But that's the SNP through and through, isn't it? And there's others. You know, he's not the only one. But this is an appalling abuse of power, and we're going to take a look at this as to why so many children are being homeless while money is wasted elsewhere. Here goes. What's sad, of course, is that parents of these children probably voted SNP and will probably vote SNP again. There's no accounting for the level of stupidity for your average SNP voter, but they are the ones voting in for this party to follow these policies that ensure that 16,000 children were left homeless. The SNP can't be trusted with the housing crisis, as more than 16,000 children were left homeless last Christmas. Edinburgh had the highest number of children and adults who were forced to apply for homes. And we have to ask why this is the case. And there are many things, but mainly it is direct SNP policy. They are making it harder and harder, increasingly harder for landlords. And so a lot of landlords are, the private landlords are getting out of the business, because either you're not allowed to put the rents up or you can only put them up a tiny amount and you're not allowed to evict people. And so landlords are saying, you know what, enough of this. Sell the houses, remove those houses from social rent, from private rental. The rental market collapses. It means fewer rental properties available in total. That has two effects. One, it means there's fewer rentals for people who can only rent, who can't ever afford to buy. And secondly, it means because there's a rarity now, the rent costs go up and the price of renting increases, pushing even more people into monetary policy poverty, rental poverty, because they can't afford the rents. But then this is what the SNP decided to do. They said, look, let's do this. Let's make it so hard for landlords that the rental market collapses. And then you look at the short-term rentals that they used to put people into as emergencies. They say, oh no, it's got to be licensed. You've got to license it because we want money. We want licensed money from you. Even though you had a business that was working perfectly well, we weren't getting our little cut. We want to wet our beak in your pond. And so they created this licensing scheme so that people had to pay the government the license to do what they were doing before without a license. And a lot of people are getting out of that. And they're going, well, we've got no long-term rentals. We've got no short-term rentals. What are we going to do with all these people who haven't got homes? And they can't afford to buy homes. And we're not allowing anyone to build homes. And because we're forcing house builders to build homes that nobody wants to live in, we're killing the house building market. And so we can't even build homes anymore. It's policy. It's all SNP. They're going to blame Westminster, but it's not Westminster that have done these things. This is purely the SNP. And of course you are making people poorer because you're increasing taxes. And so they have even less money to spend on rent. More people become homeless. The problem exacerbates. And it's all at the doors of Holyrood. This is not a Westminster problem. But they'll spin it that way. Anyway, the SNP cannot be trusted to tackle this issue, said an MSP in response to figures highlighting the prevalence of homelessness. Figures provided by the Scottish Government in response to a parliamentary question from the party found that there were 28,154 live homelessness applications for December the 25th, 2022, an 11% increase on the previous year. Data showed that 32,749 adults and 16,500 children were in temporary accommodation on Christmas Day last year. But of course now they've got rid of a lot of the temporary accommodations and a lot of landlords are getting up and getting out. This problem is going to be even worse when the figures for this year are released. And it's all down to the SNP. There's no getting away from it. So everyone who votes SNP is voting to make children homeless. Well done. Aren't you sitting on the moral high ground, you evil tosspots? Trouble is, you're all so thick you don't realise what you're doing. I'm bound to get some SNP voters in the comments going, oh, and trying to string three words together to make sense, but they'll all be badly spelt. It won't make any sense as they sit there with their big fat pie-eating fingers going, blah, 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 blah. Because, you know, they're not very clever. They're not very bright, and you can tell because they vote for the SNP. They vote for this. They vote for child endangerment. They vote for PEDs. They vote for pervs. They vote for predators. They vote for the destruction of everything. And when you tell them that, they go, no, 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 because they're all thick. Anyway, Edinburgh has the highest number of live applications, with 6,128 applications covering 7,500 adults and nearly 4,000 children in Edinburgh alone, the very heart of the SNP, the heart of government, and that's how bad it is. Because they don't care. They literally, the SNP do not care about homeless children. They are like Victorian patriarchs, aren't they? Oh, yes, yes, it's the slums are terrible. Are you going to do anything about the slums? No, we just want to eat more pie and get rich and fatter. Because that's who they are. They literally are like that. Grind, isn't it? Trying to keep more poor as you make your money. Anyway, this was followed by Glasgow with 4,863 applications with a total of nigh on 10,000 individuals. In Fife, there were 3,259 individuals. West Lothian, 2,500 to 2,500 in South Lanarkshire. It means nearly 50,000 people in Scotland were without a permanent home Christmas 22. That figure will be undoubtedly much higher this year, especially, of course, as Humza Yousaf keeps bringing in foreign nationals and ensuring by law they have to be housed. And that means houses that would otherwise go to the indigenous population, the Scots themselves, are being taken up by foreigners who've contributed nothing and never will because they're unskilled, cannot speak English, inability to ever work. But hey, they are part of his gang, so that's okay then. Liam McGarry, housing spokesman for the Scottish Lib Dems, is using his own experience of being made homeless at 16 to urge ministers to take action. But they won't because they don't care. He said the party is urging the Scottish Government to build 60,000 affordable homes to address homelessness. It can't. It cannot. Because by law, the homes will now have to be heated by heat pumps, which means they'll be cold. They will actually be unfit. They may not even pass muster for burning off bacteria in the water supply. So, hey, you can build them and then find that they're unsuitable for human habitation. This is how dim the SNP are. They really are. And I'm not kidding. They really are that stupid that they're going to spend millions upon millions of pounds building 60,000 homes, none of which will pass the minimum standard for human habitation because the groundwater or the air heating systems that they're using, heat pump systems, will not generate enough heat to lift the hot water sufficiently high in winter to burn off things like Legionnaire's disease. Wonderful, isn't it? The wonderful thinking of the SNP morons. Anyway, Mr. Gary said, at Christmas time, Most of us will have the security of a roof over our heads, but now we know that tens of thousands of Scots are not so lucky. 16,000 children. So the lack of availability, skyrocketing prices and poor quality housing are all playing a part in making life miserable for far too many. Well, that's what happens when you vote in these people who don't care. You vote in a party that is setting out to deliberately break the housing market, and that's what happens. Temporary council accommodation is stretched to breaking point, pushing people into unsuitable situations, sofa surfing or even living on the streets. Children who find themselves homeless this Christmas will have lived their entire lives under an SNP government. The Nationalists cannot be trusted with this issue. The Nationalists cannot be trusted with any issue. And this plan of 60,000 homes. Well, where are you building them? Will they have heat pumps? Will they pass the regulatory temperature ability of hot water? I suspect not, because in winter and that heat differential, you cannot possibly do it. Also, how can you force people who are impoverished into a house where the heating bill will eat about a third of their weekly income? Unbelievably bad. But hey, it's the joined up thinking of the SNP. Unbelievable. I'm coming up. I mean, I talk a good game here, but it isn't hyperbole. I know whereof I speak when it comes to house building. I've done it for 35 years. But when you are deliberately going out, destroying the long-term rental, private rental market, destroying the short-term rental market, destroying the house building industry, hobbling the legs of everyone involved at every stage, including things like making planning more difficult, and at the same time taxing people more so that the things that they could previously have afforded of they can no longer do. It's got to be deliberate policy. All these things have coalesced, but not random. And at every point people have said to them, if you do this, this will happen. And they've done it, and that's happened. It's deliberate policy, time and time and time again. And so if you have all these children who are homeless, and it'll be an even bigger number when this year's numbers are released, just be knowing that it is exactly what they have planned to do. It's not accidental. It's evil. It's a crime against humanity. Thank you very much for watching. Please vote them out. Please hit the subscribe button. And I will speak to you later. Bye.